Amanda Sutton.
Andy.
Thank you for joining me at the American Club, Kohler, Wisconsin.
Having me.
We're here at the Power Down Conference on sustainability, which happens to be your area of professional expertise, professional occupation, occupational hazard, depending on how you look at it.
True. Yes. Yeah. I have been called, I will say at my last job, I think it was a term of endearment, but I was often called an agent of chaos. So take that as you will. I'd come into projects and stir things up a bit, and So,
and you made a career of that.
I did. I made a career of it. Yes, I did. Yeah.
Well, you're one of the few people that we'll be speaking with in the course of the series who I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's where an unusual. You're new to the data center business, essentially, right? So maybe you could take us a little bit through. You've really been on the the public sector side of the business with a variety of different public agencies that have been. It's always been around sustainability. So you've really taken the sustainability expertise, and in the last how many months or years you've been with Vantage?
6 months.
Heading their sustainability. So this is very all new. So it's very, I think, beneficial to the industry to see somebody who has this as an expertise in an industry that's sort of come around to that in the last few years. So I'm curious about how that evolved.
Yeah. It's been really fun joining a new industry that has such a focus on sustainability. I feel, again, it's a little intimidating because it is such a big industry, moving very quickly, but I try to see it as just having a fresh set of eyes, and I use the new guy card a lot of asking questions that maybe seem very obvious, but why do we do it that way? Why do we do it that way?
Yeah.
And that's something I've learned just throughout my career in sustainability. I think the terms sustainability and continuous improvement go hand in hand. I've heard often, mostly from people with MBAs, that the most expensive words in business are "we've always done it that way." And that's something that really hit home with me, because sustainability is looking at what are our long-term impacts and maybe unintended consequences of decisions that we make today, and considering those and using those considerations and that information to hopefully make better decisions about how we do business. So about my career, I started in working for city governments before sustainability was really a thing.
Yeah.
I was really interested in conservation biology.
Okay.
Is how I started. I was pre-vet. I was going to be a wildlife veterinarian. And went and did that, worked in Australia for a bit.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you, because what I asked, because we don't know Amanda prior, I've kind of got a little bit of insight into people's backgrounds, but I asked her for a little known fact, and I would have to tell you that I was not prepared for the answer. So I'm just going to read. I love trying new things, and not much scares me. I've jumped out of airplanes, wrestled saltwater crocodiles, swam with the bull sharks, and backpacked all over the world. And add to that, you're a beekeeper.
And I'm a beekeeper. That's right.
Did not expect that answer.
No.
So suffice to say, you're up for any kind of adventure.
Yeah, in Australia, when someone looks at you and says, "Do you want to have a go?" you should really ask what they're talking about before you agree to doing it.
Don't say yes.
Don't just jump right into that, because pretty soon you're asking yourself, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And this probably isn't safe right now. It's fine. Yeah. So I was working as a wildlife vet, having all these experiences, which was great. But throughout the whole experience, I felt like we were treating a symptom and not the cause. And so really got into more of the conservation biology, was also very interested in business. And I had seen, back when I was in school, the conversation was always sustainability is philanthropic. It's, maybe we donate some money, we preserve some land, we do something over here, over there.
It was just an incident to pacify or satisfy kind of like, somebody's...
Our job as a business is to make money, and that's it.
Right.
And then the rest, sustainability, great, we care about those things, whatever.
Touch point.
But then you had this small subset of companies that were wildly successful and their business was built around valuing sustainability. So I'm talking like Patagonia, Whole Foods. There's a really obscure company called Interface Carpets that's one of a key leader in this. Interface Carpets. They're a leader in sustainability in the business industry. And one of the things, and then at the same time, you also had some companies that were getting hit in a really big way. One that everyone remembers is Nike, getting hit by child labor issues and manufacturing, sweatshops, and those kinds of things. And so our culture was shifting to people really care about these things, and it wasn't just about making money anymore. It was about how do we be a good steward to the environment. And so I was really interested in those companies that were able to successfully incorporate that into their business. That's what really got my attention. And so went into the field, just jumped in. City governments, I was doing, found jobs that were actually in Denver and Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay.
And my first jobs were kind of a sales position. I'd go out and I would have community programs that we had free money to give away. It was money to give away to businesses to do sustainability projects, and then we provide recognition. So
as an ambassador and education,
just kind of outreach and resources
because at that time it wasn't necessarily.
Known,
right?
And it wasn't something there was a budget for either. So we would come in and say, hey, do this energy efficiency project.
Okay. And
us as a utility would see the benefit because, they're saving energy. It reduces demand on the system, and, it's this win-win. But it was something that I recognized the businesses really appreciated. And then it started to kind of, they were seeing the value that it added, not only in terms of doing the right thing, saving energy, but in terms of maintenance and durability and costs, operational costs, reducing operational costs. So went back, got a master's degree in environmental policy and management, so very focused on sustainability.
Why?
I wanted to focus more on internal corporate sustainability and getting the business, financial classes, international law, understanding how to merge the two between sustainability as something that's just the right thing to do is what you'll hear people say, but
policy,
how it actually
versus practical application of that.
But being able to articulate it in a way to show how it adds value to the business. So it's not just about saving the planet or whatever it is that you're passionate about.
Off of the environmental.
It's actually a sound business strategy. There's a purpose to it, and it enables your business to be even more successful, in my opinion. So
for those that see and look long term, as it relates to that.
Yep. So I spent some time. I got a job at the airport, Denver International Airport. They were hiring for a sustainability manager. Thought that sounded cool, so applied for it. Jumped into aviation, knew nothing about aviation, and loved it. It was just learning like crazy. And then this position with Vantage opened up, and it was another opportunity. I'd been at the airport for about 7 years and was ready to jump into a new industry again and shake things up a bit. So
I heard a statement made the other day about. Sustainability used to be you'd go to a corporate website and you would go to the navigation bar and you would go all the way to the top and you go all the way to the right and then you click on that and you'd go all the way to the bottom and you'd find careers or culture and sustainability statement kind of thing. And so that's obviously come prominently into the forefront. But during the time that you were in the airport industry looking at sustainability, over the course of the last 4 years, it's really grown dramatically as a point and requirement, competitive advantage, depending on the nature, size, scale of what a development organization like Vantage, which has obviously been remarkable in its growth since the Digital Bridge, Digital Colony, capital influx and the international growth. So you've been sitting sort of in the front seat of all of this while it's happening. So your adventurous self, get it while it's hot. You're in a very hot seat in a international growth organization at a time that sustainability really matters. So curious, just 6 months. What has sort of been put on your plate in the course of the last 6 months to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and it was interesting when you asked for something the industry should know about. When you asked for my
3 wishes, yeah. And then go ahead if you want to go ahead with that, yeah.
But I think the term of it doesn't scare me. I think there's a lot of unknowns, which can be. I think it makes us uncomfortable just as people to not know.
Yeah, dynamic tension.
How do we figure this out? What is the risk, and
what if not?
Yeah, what if not? And so coming into Vantage, that's something that I see as an opportunity to learn, is how I view it, and I love working with smart, driven, dedicated people.
Well, you got that advantage.
Yes, and in this industry too, I've been so impressed and excited about just everyone I've met is top of their game. I mean, they're really good at what they do, and that's really fun because you get really smart people around the table and you say, how might we solve for this? And you have to think about, start to put some parameters around it of cost and timeline and all these things. But, just even asking the initial questions of how could we do better, or what are those pain points? What could we fix? If we're trying to solve for, energy efficiency, for example, let's all sit around and talk about how we can do that. And that's a really fun conversation to have. But along with that needs to be a really sound strategy and a really good foundation by which you can scale. And that's something that in the last 6 months, I've been a little quiet. People get nervous, like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, well, part of knowing where you want to go is you have to learn where you've been and why, and understand the history. And asking those questions about our teams to say, why do we do things this way? Really, I always think of Gandhi of you have to know the rules of the rules before you break them. And that's something that, I've always, you have to, because, I guess if you want to break them in a way that you don't get put in jail.
You're frontiering, you're pressing the boundaries a little bit, sure.
But just learning the rules of the game, like understanding, because sometimes there's, we talked about the answer may be, we've always done it this way, but sometimes there's a very good reason why we've always done it that way. Sure. And there's things that we cannot compromise in our industry, which is totally fine. So it's like, we need to know those rules of the game. Sure. And then we can say, but what are the things we can play with? Yeah. What are the changes we can make? And so that's really exciting for me, is how do we build that? And we don't have all the answers. And that's the thing about sustainability, is there's not going to be one magic answer that fixes everything. Right. It just doesn't work that way. So it's finding the best solutions where you can.
You've been in sustainability for how long before you got to Vantage?
About 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
So you look at this industry and its cognizance of it, if you will, in terms of, I guess, the content, notoriety, the conversations that have occurred, and they're happening with, I would call it a hockey stick inflection frequency. Yeah. But it really started maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been in this industry for a while. So what is sort of what are the need to do things when you've been in this, you've got an industry that needs your intellectual capital about what to apply. Yeah. What are some of the primary things that you see need to be applied that the industry maybe has not quite attended to yet based on your legacy knowledge?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've identified, and I identified very quickly, was a need for a consistent methodology for how we're reporting and tracking things like emissions and things like energy use.
Within the organization or across the industry?
This is across the industry. Okay. So, depending on, there's different business models, and I probably am not even speaking to all of the different models, but, we have a co-location model, we have a retail model, we have a wholesale model. Each, depending on how your business is structured, is going to dictate how you report and assign responsibility for greenhouse gas emissions, for example. Right now, there's very little methodology that is agreed upon.
Interesting.
In even North American markets versus European markets, and it needs to be an international standard and methodology that we can all follow, so that we're able to start to understand what our impacts are in a consistent way. Because right now, it's just kind of up to however the operator decides.
Separate independent organizations are reacting to some of these
Exactly.
mandates, but all in their own corners versus a,
Right.
well, here we are at the Power Down conference.
We're all reporting it the same way. We all know who's responsible for what. And so then we can start to say, okay, what partnerships are needed to address these big issues?
Sure.
And I think that's something that we're working towards, even with conferences like, events like this, is to have these conversations with each other to understand what are you doing and why are you doing it that way? Because these decisions are being made by people like myself who have been in this industry and had experience with greenhouse gas inventories for a really long time. So we're making the best decisions we have based on the information we have.
Sure.
And so, I think that's just something, it's important to understand all the different reasons why we may be doing things a little bit differently, I guess nuances about our business that make it unique in just how we report those things. But at least so we're all speaking the same language and we know that we're all reporting the same way.
I think in many cases it's necessary to have a bit of an objectified view. So you have this subject matter expertise associated with sustainability, and you have an industry that's sort of hungry and thirsty for more knowledge as it relates to that. So welcome to the industry.
Thank you
welcome
very
to
much.
Wisconsin. You're having a spotted cow.
This is perfect.
This is something that's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me.
Cheers.
You bet.